The one thing you can't forget.
Good afternoon, salutations, and go have a beer before, after, or even in the middle of the show. That's what I wanted to say. Not really, but that's what I'm going to go with anyways. Now, how I wanted to start the show was tell everybody thank you so much for joining us this Sunday. Sorry we didn't do it last Sunday. Things kind of blew up
Exploded.
in my face in a hydro. What the hell did I do? Kind of matter. But today we're going to be talking about Krull, Krull movie that came out in 1983 when sci-fi, fantasy, and the pot of your mom's spaghetti all got thrown at the wall all at once to see what stuck. With that being said, I'm being joined by Shadow, Mark, and Omenow. Young gentleman Jack, it will most likely not be joining us today because he's a little bit under the weather. So we want you in the chat to share the best feelings that you can so the young sir feels better. Now,
Yep.
I believe this was your choice, Mark.
Yes.
Why this movie? What made you think, let's torture my panel mates by watching this movie? Or did you think, oh, they really enjoyed this movie? What was your decision making?
I just thought where I was trying to keep within the theme of we're still working on February, so I was trying to keep in the theme with something that might be a little exciting. And yeah, for as bad as this movie is, I don't know. We enjoyed it when I was a kid, and when I remember seeing it in movie theater, and it kind of flopped at the theater, but there was a lot of, the budget was good for it, and there was like even arcade tie-in, like upright video games and everything to go along with this movie, so that was kind of a big deal too at the time in the early 80s when you had all that going on with it too. But yeah, and I just liked it, and I just thought it kind of, it makes for a bad or extra tropey D&D adventure, I guess, in a way. So that was my thought behind picking this one.
Well, I want to thank you for reminding me, because I had this on Laserdisc and I couldn't remember hardly any of it, thinking about it. And I'm like, did I like it? I mean, I watched it a bunch of times, but for whatever reason, I couldn't remember any of it. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. I don't know about you guys, but I really did.
I know Cuddle and I talked about this. It's one of those that and I'm afraid to even mention this out there in case, not that they'd ever listen to us, in case Netflix or Amazon goes into it. It's one of those that would have made a much better series because they tried cramming so much into it in such a small area that it failed at everything except the ideas were so great. It's like you got to watch it for the ideas more than the actual implementation. That's how I felt about it. But I think that said it's one of those, if you went D&D, like, oh man, I can make this so much better. And you're right, you could make it so much better and use all the elements in there. That's the way I felt. It reminds me of those old adventures where it's like, by the way, we've got like 10 other things that we left loose ends for. You really should flesh them out as yourself as a DM. And you know what? Liam Neeson, I didn't even care for. Well, not that I really care for him anyway. There's no movie I'd like, oh, I got to see this. Liam Neeson's in it.
Right.
Coltrane is a whole different feeling. So go ahead.
Yeah, I really, it's hard for me to even think of anything bad to say about this movie. It doesn't make me the weird guy this time. I couldn't help but, follow the whole fighter, cleric, thief, magic user aspect of it, and just how right off the bat, I doubt James L is in this, but if James L, if you're watching this or you watch it later,
he's there.
You gotta go watch. What?
He's here.
Oh, okay, James, dude, this movie is like the lost episode of Blake 7. There's so much Blake 7 in this movie, from the actors, the cheesiness, the sets were actually really good, but the whole costumes, it was like right out of Blake 7. I'm just like, oh, James, you're gonna love all of this just campy goodness.
I'm going to say something here, which was, and I didn't realize until I was watching it. I was looking up the actors. You know, the I guess the healer in there, you know, that comes down from the mountain. He was Thufir Hawat in the 1984 Dune movie, and his love interest, the widow, she was
Smoking.
Jessica Atreides. Or I'm sorry, yeah. You know, she was Lady Jessica, also in the 1984 movie. So it's really interesting in how they all tie into each other.
Francesca Annis?
Yes. Yeah. Go.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. There were some scenes in that, obviously not the ugly scenes, where she was like absolutely gorgeous.
Well, that was part of what they did. And you know what's funny is, not maybe you guys didn't do this, but when I was in school, we used to get the Scholastic books, and they always had the tie-ins for these movies. And I never saw.
Yep.
I think I've never watched the uncut version until like last week.
Okay.
And I see what Bo is. Well, I would rent it, and honestly, for myself, I just find it's just easier just to buy it off Amazon, and then I don't feel rushed to watch it. And it's not that expensive.
Yeah, you know what? I got screwed there because I rented it, and it said you got 30 days, and I watched it, and I'm like, okay, I'll have Jackie watch it when he gets back from doing his thing, which ended up being today, and I like put it up, and they're like, they want me to pay for it again. I'm like, what? No, hey, there he is.
Jack, I hope you're doing well.
Speak of the monkey.
Doing better. But the other part is that the Scholastic books used to have a lot of the little background stuff and explain things, and they went through they give a little more in depth of the story, which is how I got it. The same thing I got Dark Crystal was the same way. We would get that.
That's how I got my very first H.P. Lovecraft paperback. Was through Scholastic of all things. I'm like, what? You know, because I'd already seen it all in the Deities and Demigods book, and I'm like looking at the Earl Otis artwork, just going, oh, I got to read this stuff. And then I read it, and I'm like, oh, wow, they didn't do it justice, did they, at all? That stuff's way more creepy. Earl Otis made it look kind of cartoon in retrospect.
The movie kind of needs, and I hate to say this because it would outshine the movie, which unfortunately wouldn't be that hard. This movie needs a book.
Well, the problem is that we only have 2 hours to do this, and it really deserves like 10 to 15.
This movie deserves a book, or a miniseries, as Omenau said earlier. There was just so much going on.
Cartoon wouldn't suck either, to be honest.
Yeah,
back in the day, you know,
such a great idea that they had bunch. It's like, do we want to make this aliens? Do we want to make this fantasy? Do we want to make this magic? Do we want to use hard science? Do we want to do this?
Let's do it all.
Right, and they throw it in Grandma's great big crock, stir it up, and poured it out for dinner. And you're wondering, what the fuck did I just watch?
Well, you know what though is for me, it's the other part. Well, let's go for the examples. You know, when they're going over talking about the beast and stuff. Well, that's fine. But I'm just going to say, I'm going to move a little bit ahead on the glaive. Oh, you have to get the glaive, which admittedly is only used twice in like the whole thing. It's only used twice, but you know, they make it this big challenge, and I've got to give credit to the actor. He was actually doing that rock climbing up that, and you know, it doesn't seem like much, but man, they would probably never allow that nowadays, because if he got hit by a rock, he's out. But
if he fell on his back.
No, yeah.
But real quick before we passed it, the only part I didn't like, before I forget, because I do that, was the fact that he didn't get the glaive back. There is no way on God's green earth, as a player character, I would have left that building without walking closer to the dead body and just pulling that dang thing back out. It's like, no, we're not leaving it here. Are you kidding? What? It was all about range. To me, it was like he just wasn't close enough for his psychic powers to work, you know? Like 8 more meters closer, and he would have been able to, got it back.
Well, don't you think that was maybe it was supposed to stay there because it was supposed to be, you know, in case there was another whatever that somebody else could be able to get in the future and do another, because it was supposed to have been like a holy relic. So maybe it was supposed to stay there and be there for somebody else that was going to need that some other time.
I'm going to say this much.
Just
Because
saying as a player character. Just
I
saying as a
know,
player
I
character.
know.
I'm just saying, but as
Leave the artifact behind?
well,
Not a fan.
as a pulp thing, the trope, whether it's the teeth of Guahir, whenever you listen to Conan, you always
Mhm.
lose the big item at a certain point. And I'm okay with it because, to be honest, what was the glaive was more of a symbol than anything else, because what was the most powerful thing that they had was the fire. Anyway, let's not. I don't want to skip too far ahead, but that was part of it.
My issue. I had issues with. There's so many issues. Okay. Let's get this thing going. Let's start this next correctly, because the rambling is amazing. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. And the salad bar was great. We'll go back to it if we need to. I'm hungry. So this movie had new upcoming actors and it had old school actors. It was well cast, in my opinion. I had no problem with the cast. But was there any one character over the others you liked? And the prince and the princess does not count because they're the main characters.
So what you're saying, side characters?
Side characters.
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
supporting
Absolutely.
characters.
There's a one guy who just stole the show every scene he was in.
Okay, so who is it? Since you're going,
hold on. Let me see if I can. David Batley.
which one is he?
The magician or the wizard.
Yes,
And he's been in so much stuff, and he just nailed it. He starts out. He had the full character arc from schmuck to freaking lovable doofus. I guess you know what I mean.
Oh,
That Jackie needed to watch this because the scene with the dog was just melted my heart. I'm just like, okay, you win. You win. I don't need to watch anymore. You win. And I love the whole, the pitiful, stack of notes for his spell book.
yes. Well,
Playing the magic user in Bloodworth's game, I've got like this library now, of spells, and he's got like 8 sheets of paper, and I'm like, okay, he's got polymorph self, and I have no idea what else because he never did anything else.
Yeah, I think those were all his polymorph spells. That's what he could turn into, because there was the tiger.
Yeah, the hook was he couldn't do any type of magic that caused harm or something. That was the deal. So he would turn into the animals, I guess, and indirectly either defend or help however he could. But yeah, there was some type of.
Check this out. You guys can help me out here. I'm playing a magic user, okay? An 8th level D&D magic user in Bloodworth's game. And I've got polymorph self. It was my first 4th level spell. But they will not let me, or I should say the DM and a couple of the players will not let me use any attack form of a creature that I pick. Not like breath weapon, because like I know how to do Black Dragon, but I can't bite, claw, or tail.
Because
it doesn't say you can. It says you can use the movement, but none of the other abilities. So claw, bite is not one of them.
That just seems weird to me. I'm not going to go into that because you're in another game. I'm not the DM for that at a certain point.
But I'm not alone in thinking that maybe, even if I got massive minuses, I'm okay with that.
Well, but between you and me, I would say you can do everything except the breath weapon. That's the way I would probably do it. Of course.
I'd still get to do some damage.
Yes.
Obviously I'm not trained in it. And I'd probably be at the -4 or -6 or whatever magic users are. But there have been times I'd still be willing to roll the die to take the chance.
Is there, can I just ask this, is there a druid in the party by any chance?
Yes, there is.
Maybe he does. Maybe he's afraid that's going to take away from his, you know what I mean? If he wild shapes into, and that's his deal and his thing to do in time to shine. Maybe he's afraid. It'll take away from him. The
party is actually who I've been taking some lessons from, not directly, but learning. Okay, she just did a hawk or something. I'm like, okay, a DM. I'm focusing. I want to be able to do that someday. if I need to turn into a falcon, I saw a falcon, right? I've even kind of kept a list of the critters that I've, eyeballed, like a bull, a black dragon, some things like that, just because, at the very least, well, shit, I can fly. So that's
Well,
cool. That's worth it. I might
go
be able to
on,
scare off the board.
maybe check out something like Dragon's Foot or something like that for some old arguments about. Maybe you could find something in the archive that argued that
All right.
problem or something. I don't know.
Which version are you playing? I mean, because when you say
Playing
D&D,
First
that could be
Ed.
like 6,
First Ed.
Okay, all right, yeah. I thought that they could use those attacks, but that's just me. I'd have to go look back at
Yeah,
the old books, but
Yeah,
probably
both
probably the
D&D
spell's pretty vague, and that's his argument, and that's just what his ruling is.
I even looked in both the PhD and the DMG for specifics, and it doesn't say you can't attack, but you can't use the abilities. And if Claw Bite is an ability, that's kind of stretching it. But I think it's more along the lines of Mark's idea and a combination of that, and I would suddenly become way more powerful. But mind you, I made it to freaking 8th level as a D4 hit die character.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's pretty Yeah, it's pretty hard to do. So yeah.
And to be fair on that is, I hate saying this, and of course we need to go back to Krull in just a second. But for me, like I said, special abilities would be the breath weapon. I wouldn't give you that, but I would allow you to do the claws because those are
the 9th level. Yeah,
because you'd be native to that. But the other part that, of course, comes into it is your you polymorph. You still keep your original hit points, don't you?
Yep.
So it's not like you're overpowered in that aspect. So anyway,
I got 30. I think I have 32 or 34 hit points compared to some of the characters having 80.
You are, but at 8th level, that is pretty freaking high. For 32. So you just maxing.
And I'm only this far away from 9th, where I will undoubtedly be denied access to teleport. I'm calling it now, because he lets us have a free spell at the new level, and I'm like, okay, teleport. He's gonna be like, no.
Okay.
Like, I know, I already wrote it down. See, here, I knew you would say no.
But
I couldn't get Dimension Door at 4th level, so I'm sure as hell not going to get teleport.
Okay,
but it's
I don't
still
want
a
to
great
derail it.
game.
I don't want to derail it too much right now.
No, I just figured it was. I wasn't going to get another opportunity to ask about that particular thing, because I was talking about, what was his name again? Ergo, which I thought was kind of funny. Ergo.
Yeah.
Ergo, yeah.
What was it? Tall in stature,
wide in vision, or something like
narrow in focus. Anyway,
incredibly narrow in focus.
That's fine. Well, you know what though? It's the old D&D. That's kind of how it was. You had a few spells, and just like if we were talking about Dungeon Crawl Classics, you don't you only get a few spells, and that's it. You don't get like tons of spells like they're used to. But I was okay with it.
Jack Bantian.
Yeah. Okay. So.
All right. So yours Ergo. Yeah, I've seen him in a lot of movies. He was in Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory as the teacher. Yep. He was in a few other things, but that's the only other movie I could think of that jumps up. What about you, Mark? Who was your favorite side character?
The Cyclops for sure.
Really?
He was a great character. What got me about it was that there's so much more background on him, on the Cyclops, and they just never really developed it. But I agree with you. There was nothing bad about him. I like the ending. Go ahead. Sorry, Mark. It's yours.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's my pick. My favorite secondary character out of the party is the Cyclops.
And why is the real reason, I guess.
Just the way, his mannerisms. He was like just a big, lovable guy, and he kind of knew what was coming at the end, and he still, he was going to stay behind, and he still chose the harder path and came through and saved the day at the end and took a painful route that he needed to take.
It's one thing I was having sort of a Mandela effect. I could have swore I knew how he died, from watching the movie millions of times, but I could have swore the scene looked different when I saw it as a kid. It was sort of, bigger, like pan away shot of him doing this thing and stuff like that. But it wasn't like that when I watched it this time.
Now maybe
it was a different cut.
Maybe you just didn't have a big enough screen there, because there's a big difference as a kid. But I agree with you. Sometimes you remember something, you look back, and it's exactly the same thing. You're like, wow, that's so different than I remember it, because it is so. But the one thing I liked about the Cyclops is they're like, why aren't you coming? He's like, because they could see their death, and the young kid went, oh,
Twitch.
Twitch or whatever. If you he says if he doesn't die the right way, then he will die a horrible way. And yet he still came at the end. All right, see you later, James. That's why.
Take care, Dave.
I agree with you, Mark. He's a great character. He's one of my favorites. I like the fact that they talked a little bit about the Cyclops, just enough that you could feel why he was following, but you could also get the whole idea of why he couldn't go any further. And then of course that one horse at the end.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I have a favorite character, a side character, because I enjoyed them all for multiple different reasons.
I'll tell you two of mine that are there.
All right.
Which is I love the healer. I thought that because it's a great backstory for the whole thing. He lets things on. You could tell that he was a hero beforehand.
Yeah.
And he come back down. They're like, oh, you only come down for this. He's the one that basically tells the. I like the fact he goes over the main character like, quit your whining. I came to find a king and I found a boy. Put your pants on and move. I was like, oh, okay, I like that. And then I did like his whole arc, because you can tell that was the man that at some point he went, duty mattered more than love. And when he had to do the whole go down and one way trip to go see the widow, and yet he still was willing to do it. And
did anybody else call the love affair between the two?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously I'd seen it before, but I couldn't remember shit. But I'm like, hey, that they were an item,
I've seen this movie too many times over the years. I caught it like maybe the second time I saw it I'm like, those two were an item at some juncture. But yeah.
So when I read the Scholastic book, it explained all of it basically had the shot by shot kind of thing in animated form, and they explained some of the other stuff in the background that may not have necessarily made the movie, or maybe it was just because it was on the page, it was easier to pick out. But yeah, the whole thing where it's like, well, I know one person that can tell us where it will be, and he's like the widow, and he says, and I like it, I have to go alone. If there are two of us, we will surely die. If there's one, I might have a chance.
Because of the relationship they had. Now, quick question, guys. Because of the time it came out, do you think that character of the widow had any influence on Lolth?
I think it was the opposite.
Yeah, because
the
Demon Web Pits came out
80
before that.
81 or 82.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But okay, either way, they were.
I thought that myself, their Shadow. I'm like, wow, this is very, Underdark, Loth-ish type scenario here with all the spider webs. But I know the movie came out in 83, but I didn't remember how long.
That was like 80 or 81, I think. Was that the U series, the Spider Demon Web?
Yeah,
no, I think it was the
Q1
series.
Q. Okay.
But it was right after D1, D2, D3.
Right.
Which I have all of them in original form, and Queen of the Demon with Pits was kind of lame.
Anyway, the whole point of that was that it was a. Here's the interesting thing: is we're talking about that in the Widow and the Web. What did you think of the? Sorry, Kyle. But what did you think of the special effects with the spider?
Oh, I think that was gorgeous.
The clear spider was creepy as hell.
Oh yeah,
the fact that it was clear made it so much more creepy than I can even put into words. The fact that you could see like right through it, and as far as I could tell, it was a real spider, or parts of it were a real spider. You know what I mean?
it looked like it, but then just the way that it moved there, and it looked like stop motion. So
Yeah.
it could have been a real spider. I thought it looked like a real spider, but I couldn't tell. I guess maybe they took singles. I don't know how they did all the shots with the stop motion on the spider web. I like the whole thing as he's moving through. But the healer was one of my favorites. But the other one I really liked also, which has only just this minor bit part, but he was very important, was the Emerald Wizard, or the Emerald.
I love the concept of him. Oh
Yes.
my God. I love the concept of him so much. I'd use that character in a campaign, not run that character, but I'd use him as a very important NPC at that type. Oh my God.
Well, I like
It's
it when
weird. I kind of thought of him as more, I hate to be like stereotypical, but I was thinking of him more as like kind of like a druid or almost a monk from the way they portrayed him.
well, to me, we're in D&D we separate everything into classes, but back then, you're a magic user and with foresight. So to me, I guess he would be a diviner if you're going to buy second edition or something like that. But
Well, it's funny you put it like that, because I could not help going through the whole movie. I'm like, these guys are watching and playing D&D, man. That's all there is to it.
Well, of course, but the whole thing when you went over and the healer comes in, it's like my old friend, and the diviner's like, oh yeah, but he had the young apprentice with him who knew just about as much as he did. It seemed, it was like, look, I can't see anymore. You have to help. But I also like the whole part where the guy thought he was stealing all the emeralds, and then just that one little bit where he comes over, he says, "Look, we'll be rich men." He shows him up like, "This is it," and you can see the emeralds. What was his name? The enchanter, or whatever it was called.
Seer.
Seer. He smiles at the same point, like, Anyway, so those are my two.
I like the bandits.
Of course.
The slayers, the soldiers.
The the bandits. You got.
Okay.
Hold on,
yeah.
You got Liam Neeson. You have, I can't pronounce his Onway Armstrong. I know I'm probably messing up his name. You have Robbie Coltrane. I mean, these are guys I'd watch as kid. I mean, watch growing up as a kid. Is Armstrong? He was a detective in one of my favorite movies, The Saint, with Val Kilmer. Robbie Coltrane. I mean, between Harry Potter and James Bond series and a few other movies, I mean, but the characters that they played are very. I felt that these were. You know how some actors will play characters that are like right next to their own personality? Was it not so much of an acting exercise, more of just, hey, I'm not saying they weren't acting. I'm just saying it felt more natural for them for these roles. And that's why I like their characters as much. Plus, oh God, my wife's don't kill me. Which one? That whole.
Well, I also liked. I always love Robbie Coltrane, but it's so interesting seeing him because I remember in Cracker, where
oh God, yeah.
No offense, Connell, where he's your size, whereas whereas in this movie it's like, oh, you're a little bit overweight, but you're not grossly obese. I will have to show you. I will have to send you a picture of me back in the day. You will not believe it's me on Discord. I think Shadow will even have to take a double look.
I get it. Shit happens.
But no offense, Connell. We want you to get healthier, so you gotta watch what you've been eating.
You should hang out with DM James a little bit more often, my friend. He's lost 65 pounds in just a couple of months. Well, I've done something similar because I was there, not quite there, but I lost 50 pounds in like 4 months.
I haven't said anything publicly, but since the beginning of the new year, I've been going to a gym and I've been swimming and I've been on my old boxing diet. I've lost a little bit of weight, but it's slow going for me.
Well, no. I mean, that's great. I mean, I have a friend of mine that's lost 40 pounds over the last 4 years.
If you do it too fast, you find out that it doesn't really work. You got to kind of do it a certain way, or it'll either just come back like me, or you'll just fail at it miserably and just give up.
Yeah. Well, I love this, James.
You have to
Cuddle,
build
this
those
is the
good
year we
habits.
become gods, and my answer is, and not Dionysius.
Hey, speak for yourself, man. Speak for yourself.
He seemed like he was the kind of guy who threw a really good party.
Until that end part, but yeah.
anyways, so we did the characters. I don't want to be too I don't want to bash the movie too much because it very much was a movie of its era. I loved special effects. Practical magic that they did back in the day has always been my favorite versus what we have now. I know now a lot of the what they do looks like you can walk out your door and find yourself there because how real it looks. But was there any of the practical magic in this movie that really shined out more than anything else?
Yeah,
I
there
know
was
this is
something.
a Jack question, and Jack's not here.
The spider web. I mean, that whole thing where they have her in the middle there, that just was so cool. And I like the audio effects they have where it makes it almost like tingling bells. That to me was where it really did it. That was better than anything else, in my opinion, for special effects. That said, is you look at the sets. The sets are gorgeous. I mean,
Oh, the castle, the White Castle at the beginning and whatever. I want to know where that is because everything about it seemed like a real place, except for the actual style was so way out there. You know, something you'd expect to see in like a Star Wars or something like that, or even later Buck Rogers kind of stuff in the 25th century. That was just beautiful. I don't know where that was filmed on location. I should have checked that part out, but it was just beautiful.
All right. What about you, Mark?
Since we said the spider webs are, I'm gonna go with at the end when the fortress starts collapsing and it goes up instead of crumbling to the ground. I thought that was cool at the time.
I love the fire, the pyro, the little balls of fire he would come in his hand.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, if the Hollywood or whoever decided we're going to make somebody who could produce his flames at the tip of his fingers, okay, just have him hold his hand like this, clickety click click, poof, there it is on screen. Now, but back in the day, it wasn't that way. I mean, I know there's certain movies out there where they had, professional stuntmen who would literally light themselves on fire.
Sure.
For certain scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate the art. That's really what I'm getting with this one is the art of the practical magic is all aspiring to. And I'm not saying the people who do it CGI are not talented because that's a whole different type of art form.
Sure.
I will not bash them for that. But I just thought the fire and how they were able to do that, even the little scene where he's just holding in his hand, I thought was highly impressive for the era.
Well, we talk about the super realistic, but sometimes I think the problem comes down to it is they rely so, and I'm going to mention Star Wars in particular. The newer the stuff that came out in the 2000s. Sometimes they felt that the story really didn't matter, and they wanted as great special effects as possible. But this one, yeah, okay, fine. I can pick out the stuff like the glaive where he goes into the lava and pulls it out. Things like that. But I still love it. And here's the other thing. Even for a lot of the scenes there, with the exception of the swamp, which, swamps always seem to be in the studio. But, man, they actually shot in, location. And like Shadow said, when he was talking about the castle. The castle, I think that's a real castle somewhere that they may have modified a little bit to it. But yeah, I mean, you look at it and like this, that's something I could actually see. And maybe I'm wrong about it, but I thought that they did a great job. And apparently this was a super expensive film to make.
Yeah, it was.
So
it shows it,
it
really does. And I hope they made their money.
It bombed. It bombed at
Yeah.
The initial run. Yeah, it bombed.
It did.
Well, the director is Peter Yates. Peter Shit, I'm messing up on his name. Hold on. Yates. Peter
Yates.
Yates. Now, I don't know if anybody of you are recognize the name, but he as a director, he's passed away some time ago. But I'm like trying to I'm looking at stuff. I know I've seen a lot of his movies, either older movies. He shit. I don't know if the
I'm looking. Yeah, Bullet is the big
Bullet.
one I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, The Saint, the TV series, The Saint. Which let's see. I'm trying to find one that maybe a lot of people know. The Bullet, as you said.
The Deep from 1977. That was a big deal when that came out.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
I've seen it.
But yeah, Steve McQueen in the Bullet. God, I know grown ass men, if they get anywhere near that model of a car,
Mustang.
the Mustang, they'll start crying.
Yep.
But I think this is one of those movies that was just made before its time.
I think I think part of it just comes down to, like we're talking about, and I'm going to mention some other stuff like Babylon 5 and things. There are certain movies that I want to say taste, or maybe it's not even taste. It's how the production, like if Babylon 5 had come out 10 years later, where it was standard to watch, where DVDs came out to watch the movies or things like that. Like a perfect example is Lost. People hear stuff, then they would go buy the DVDs to binge watch the seasons. A lot of things would have worked out better. I just mentioned Babylon 5 in particular because they were never sure if they were ever going to make another season. And they kept on, and you could tell it would like kind of jerk, and then it would get really good, and then it would jerk again. It would almost shut it down. But I think, for Krull, if they could, this is a great one that I want to call it, when we have the schlocky movies for sci-fi and stuff. But this is one of those, definitely. I felt that, like The Glaive, I wish that they had gone much, much deeper into the trials to get the Glaive. That could have been a couple of hours long. It's like, he makes it like, oh, only a few people can get this. Well, why are we going up there? He says, well, you'll know when to get it. And he makes him climb the mountain. Man, you could have put so much more adventures in a D&D game just for getting the Glaive, and then after you get the MacGuffin, as Bo said, then you can go to the Emerald Seer. And you can go meet everyone that's going through there, and
they've really jammed so much into this movie.
Yes.
It was,
and it suffered for it, but man, it's such a great film to see for ideas. I mean, this is a whole campaign unto itself.
Yeah, it's Krull.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm still reading. As we're talking about, I'm reading. The production, not the production, the writing of the movie, and Gary Gygax stated, to the best of my knowledge and belief, the producers of this movie never approached TSR for license to enable their film to use the D&D game IP. I mean, this could work in a D&D Pathfinder. Hell, even a fucking Traveler campaign if you done it right, because you got the.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned Blake 7. It's got a lot of that, feel and vibe to it that Blake 7 had.
It's Gamma World, D&D, crossover.
And now, because it's more D&D fantasy, because there's no mutations in the animals. The closest you got were the horses, which were pretty epic. But bringing up the horses, was it weird? Did anybody notice besides me that when the horses came in, there were two guys actually riding the horses to begin with? And I kept thinking that they were like not part of the group, but yet they're on the horses at the end. At the end, you know what I mean? As the horses came, there were two guys in the back on horses already.
Well, they were regular horses, and they were part of the original band. The prisoners, they were part of that, but they were normal horses.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the fires were supposed to be, because those were all Clydesdales.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and those are big old draft horses.
Anybody who knows anything about horses will tell you you cannot ride Clydesdales as you could like stallions. They're not meant to be ridden. They're workhorses.
Yeah, but these are fire mares, Connell.
I
Well,
know.
and you know what? People say that you can ride them. It's just that, well, they call them cold-blooded, and a lot of times everyone I don't know. Again, I talk to different people.
I could be wrong, but that's what I've always been told. Clydesdales were meant to be workhorses. You can't run them the same way you can run.
Oh, they're probably too big. They probably get worn out too fast because they're so huge. I would imagine that's part of the reason.
Well, they're draft horses is part
Yeah.
of it. They're not the speedsters that you would normally.
Right.
I mean, the people who do Clydesdales use them to pull things, and they do the competition. And believe me, I looked at some of the horses like Percherons and stuff. A lot of people when they get into it, for horses, the feed is very expensive. World has changed. A lot of people when they want a really pretty horse. And a Clydesdale, I'm not knocking his. I love Clydesdales. I mean, anyone that looks at the Anheuser Busch or whatever, with the Clydesdale. But from riding horses, part of it just comes down to you. Everything has to be bigger. The saddles. I've seen people ride them, but they're not. If you want to ride fast, you generally don't get one of them. And but I kind of like the cold-blooded. But all the girls are the ones that ride horses. I mean, whether people like it or not, they're the majority of people who ride horses. And they want all the horses.
I'll give you that.
And they want pace. Hey, having bred with a horse girl, we can say this is
Fred, is that how you're gonna put it?
Oh wow.
There's a story because my son one time got mad at his mom and he was going, "She should never have had kids. I wish Daddy had never bred you." And I went, "Since when did you become a nihilist?" Anyway, sorry, but that's
Dude. He and Jack are more and more like every damn time we talk about him. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, but it's funny for the whole thing. But well, Jack is probably more like how I was. My son is just different. Maybe more like Connell's son over there.
Daughter?
Which one?
You mean you said Connell's son? I don't have. Yeah. Oh, Laszlo. Yeah. He's more like Laszlo. Yeah.
I mean, personality probably for that. But Shadow, your son is like how I was at his age. I mean, and I mellowed a lot. So there's still.
Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, otherwise you'd get your ass beat regularly.
Well, so I mean, but
I
no,
didn't say that.
yeah, they were riding normal horses and they were getting the Clydesdales, and Clydesdales are so big. The other thing is that when you ride a horse, yeah, but a lot of people will ride that stuff. It's. I think people just don't get them because when you look at them, those horses are going like 1,500 pounds, and an average horse is 800 to 1,000. I mean, they're not cheap, and they're huge. And trying to get on one, let alone saddle it. I mean, it's the average war horse I think was 15 or what was it? Maybe 15 hands or something like that. And these are like 18 hands or so. They're another foot taller at the shoulder. I don't know about you, but trying to jump on one, let alone if you fall off one, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, you're
trying to land on your ass.
That's at least a D6. That's at least a 1 or 2 D6 damage. I mean, that's how the rules work, right?
Yeah. Well, how many in the real world? How many actually died from falling off their horse? More than one king has died from falling off his horse.
There's a horrible part of me who wants to make a Christopher Reed joke, but I'm not going to be that person, at least not on live.
Bringing it up qualifies, my friend.
It's yeah. Well, you do what you love, and at a certain point, you have to understand there's risk to it.
Oh yeah, and I completely get that. And Christopher Reed was a great actor. I just had a bad day. All it takes is one bad day.
I mean, I fell off a mammoth donkey onto my butt, and it took my tailbone hurt for probably a year or two from that. I mean, it's and he drugged me too. Thank God it was a donkey, not a horse. My foot got caught up in the lead rope, and he drugged me probably 10 or 15 feet. So, People
Now-
forget it's we take a lot of these things for granted, but man, injuries from animals are pretty high. So
What did the group think of the villains?
you know what is I liked the main villain, the beast, was interesting, but again, what am I supposed to say? I wish he'd been fleshed out more. Yeah, I wish I had watched a movie like The Godfather for Krull. That's kind of the way I feel about it. But what
He was kind of pitiful. It was kind of,
well, I think that they rushed it.
Anticlimactic, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, he was one of those that worked better in the shadows, but this is one of those that the beast was the kind that if they had done a trilogy or something like that, I don't know. Again, the movie just felt rushed the entire way through, and if it didn't feel, and the movie was still 2 hours long, it wasn't a short movie. Most movies were what?
Yeah,
an hour and 40.
Yeah, the main bad guy I've read before in the past, they had a lot of it was something with the effects and the costume and that they had a hell of a time. That's why all the images you saw of the main bad guy were done through a weird angled lens and that fisheye type effect, and that they had that was one of the problems with the budget and the film and everything. There was some issue with that his costuming or something in the effect. They couldn't get it right for whatever reason. So
Mark, I will say this much: I'm glad you didn't pick Legend.
Oh, you don't like that one? I like that movie.
No. How do I want to put this? It's not that. It's one that's a lot slower than this one.
It's that's a slow burn. Yeah.
Legend is a slow burn.
No, I love the idea.
And I think Bruce Lombardo's reviewing that like this week, so thank God we won't have to suffer through that for many a moon.
But I just want to mention that to Mark is that it's not but the ideas are great in there. But this was one of those. It just has the ideas. You're like, man, you could have fleshed out just him getting the glaive into one thing, and then him traveling over to the where was the swamp. You could have him traveling off the swamp as that's one whole adventure plus. And then once you go from there, I mean, if we're going to break it up into, like, if this was 3 movies long, you could have done that, where he gets the glaive. And then the next movie would have been him trying to find the Emerald Seer, and then, having where the shatters, and then they have to go into the swamp. That could be the next scene. And then the last part is well, how are we going to go get them? And then, of course, they visit the widow in the web. How dark was that? Oh my God!
I love for villainy sake of villainy. I love that they killed off the Seeker and replaced it with a bad guy. I thought that was really clever, and you don't see that very. I mean, you do see that, but you don't. How should I put this? It wasn't. It was just very smooth. There was nothing clunky about it.
Well, it's like Twitch. Is that you? And you can see him come over, and he looks just like here. Yeah.
So I think the villains. I mean, the knights. His army was bland. I think the beast was interesting. I wish it would get fleshed out. But the things that he did with replacing the seer with one of his own creatures very smoothly, very, very smoothly. And it was probably one of the better scenes of the movie when it comes to him.
Oh, well, the other part is when he replaces the woman. She's like, oh, her village was destroyed. Do you know anything about her? They didn't make too much of it until that one scene where he's with her.
Yeah.
And, she's, and then of course the beast destroys her at that point for the, so it doesn't show that everyone's in there. This is one of those, like I said, I wish there was so much more to it. It's got all the elements, but they just can't gel because it's too full of stuff. It's like trying to do anyone that's watched the original Lord of the Rings, trying to make that into a 2-hour movie. It's always going to fail 100%. You can get bits and pieces of it, but it really deserves the full 12-hour treatment, like they did, like Peter Jackson did.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Going back now, I think you said, Shadow, that the main actress didn't even speak English.
Right. Or if she did, they chose to pick someone else to do her voice.
Yeah, she was mad about that.
It usually implies, she's just there for one reason. That's to look pretty. And I'm like, well, you failed already because she's a ginger. But
Damn.
Wow.
Wow, I've never seen such hatreds in gingers. Well,
I know I'm honestly teasing because I have actually dated like 3 gingers in my life. So no, she's actually very cute. She reminded me actually a lot of Mel from Doctor Who. You guys remember her?
Yeah.
I for a second I thought that's who it was because that gigantic mop of curly red hair. Normally gingers women don't have. I mean, it's usually kind of straight.
I don't know. I've Connell being from Ireland, he's probably been overloaded with gingers. He's like, you can never have too many gingers. Sorry, I'm just.
To be fair, considering I'm colorblind, I've actually never seen redhead. I've never seen a redhead before. Okay. It's just another variation of gray. No, the concept sounds absolutely gorgeous, but no, I no.
That was another thing is, how do I want to put it? If you were doing stories, the Kings had their own stories from before. Each of them had their own stories, which if you were going to tell this in a modern miniseries or something like that, and now I'll use, what was it? What was where they did the Highlander and stuff like that, where they'd flash back, for things, and so you can find out what Lost did it too. There was what was the other movie that they did with all the Disney characters, where they flash back and you see portions of their life, so you can start filling in what was going on there. The Kings had their own history of not working together and how they didn't like each other, and they're like, no, we'll ally, but we don't want to get married. Well. So yeah, I do feel sorry.
Was anybody else impressed with the armor of the basically the good guys? How like incredibly cool it looked, but at the same time like very reminiscent of almost a sci-fi movie with with their face plates that were like mirrored, so they could see through, but you couldn't see in. I want those. I want those.
At the very first battle? Yeah. They were very.
That's the one thing
that cool kid.
I wish they would have. Once again, not trying to be too negative when it comes to this movie, because I do kind of have a short list of things that just irritated me about this damn movie. I wish they would have stuck with one or the other. It being a sci-fi. On a planet deep in space, there is a kingdom where legend says a princess will give birth to, will be the princess of the universe. I mean, that's such a great line. But it did not feel sci-fi to me, except for the laser lances.
And
the alien. That was
I personally looked at it as entirely a fantasy, magic. Everything was just, for me, it was just magic. It didn't wash as a real sci-fi movie, or even sci-fi fantasy for me. It's like, nope, that's magic. I'm good. It's just magic. I don't need to try to read into it, being some sort of technological explanation for any of the coolness. It kind of almost was, for me, the opposite.
I mean, it's one of those that, this is sometimes the problems I have with sci-fi nowadays, is it works fine. You could explain the weird laser weapons and stuff like that, but, you kind of go, well, why didn't they just pull out the normal, automatic rifles and stuff. But that said, it's fantastical. I'm okay with it. Like you said, it's a one-shot wand, and then they would have to flip it around to attack. Notice at the very beginning they didn't do it as much. What were the little things in their skulls? Like when they would destroy it, and they're the little worm things.
Right.
I think part of
Yeah,
it
that was pretty creepy.
it was the
And they
multi-dimensional.
didn't even need to do it. They didn't even need to do that, and it would have been
It
just
was
fine.
cool. Yeah, it was cool.
But I
That
liked
was a
it better
cool
that
thing.
way because
Yeah.
it personally is okay. You're not killing other humans. You're fighting something else that is alien or non-humanoid.
It
Yeah.
probably helped them get them past the sort of GI Joe center mentality of the time, where you couldn't see blood and you couldn't see humans die, robots and things like that. That's not a problem, but no, it can't be the humans. Maybe that
But there were
well,
tons of people that died
part
in the
of-
first battle. Sorry,
true. That's true.
I mean,
What was
and
the
it did
rating of this movie? PG.
It was PG, but PG back in that day could be like the equivalent of PG-13 nowadays.
What was the rating for the original Aliens movie? Hard R.
That's an R.
Oh, Alien. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
an R, definitely. That
All right,
was.
it's just
That
like-
was Alien was. Oh, I don't want to go off. Alien was strange for that though, because they made toys. I had like a little.
They still
My
make toys.
mom wouldn't let me see that movie because she was pretty strict about what. Well, I probably 79, so I would only been 6 or 7. So, but they for somebody bought me it. I had the little. It seemed like it was just about the full movie except the chest burster scene, and it was a little toy, and you wound it, and it had all the little frames in there without the sound
Oh, really?
of the movie.
don't
Yeah,
know.
it was.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't have a full toy box of Alien toys, but I had my share of them, and that was this. Oh my God, merchandise. We were talking about whatever movie did we talk about? Shadow's Pick, where there was just
John
no
Carter.
merchandise. Yes,
Yeah.
there was a video game, but I don't remember there being. This was 83. I was born in 83, but I still find toys from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and so forth. I've never seen a Glaive toy. Did they make them?
I thought that they did.
They may
I'm
have.
pretty
I know.
sure they
I
did.
know there was the. I mean, the video game deal with this was a big deal. They had the upright cabinet one, and then Atari had a license to make a game too.
But I think that this is part of it was, we all talk about toys, and there were some like Planet of the Apes and stuff, but really they
Hold on, I'm
exploded.
looking it up.
Oh, okay, but they really exploded with Ken Moore and was it Ken Moore or whatever? But it was the
Kenner.
Star Wars. Yeah, what was
Kenner,
it?
yeah.
Kenner.
George Lucas took
Star
like
Wars-
the Planet of the Apes to like the
Oh yeah,
nth degree.
degree.
Yeah, yeah.
and we did. I know how I was at that time. I wanted all the aliens. I didn't care about the humanoid looking, the humans. I wanted the ones with the weirdest heads that were in there for like 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, there were action figures.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's also from the Planet of the Apes movie, there was a character named Krull, so that's getting in the way of the search. But there were definitely, at the very least, action figures.
Okay.
I somehow,
From
like I said, this
83.
movie came out the year I was
Hold on,
born.
you know what?
so
Let me just go images, and I'll get a better idea.
So
I-
I'm terribly surprised that I missed some of the toys because this movie came out the year I was born, so that doesn't surprise
I
me.
think I
Oh, yeah,
remember.
they
I
had
think
that.
Marvel did the comic for it too.
Okay.
Yeah,
You-
yeah. There was at least a frisbee with the glaive on it, so there
Okay.
was that. But plenty of action figures. Oh no, there was actually a really kind of badass looking glaive. I'm looking at here
Yeah.
on Amazon. I'm gonna have to go buy that.
It was plastic, I believe, and it had the little spring load.
yeah,
in it.
sure, sure. As a matter of fact, my son has like a throwing star that unfolds like that he got from Walmart a couple years back, and he freaking loved that as a kid. But yeah, plenty of stuff. Yeah.
All right.
It was marketed right. Well, you know what the other one was, and of course it bombed. We talked about this one bombing.
Oh hell, they even had the sword.
Was Dune? Dune was the other one where they
Yeah.
had toys out and it bombed. And but that was another. I'm going to bring this up is because my mother drugged me to that movie, and thank God she explained everything to me. But the 1984 Dune also had the problem of trying to limit it to a certain time period, a certain thing. And I thought when they brought it out on the TV, the television stuff, and they added all the background that
I'm
helped
looking
so
at
much.
I'm looking at a Glaive movie prop film replica from Krull. The Glaive does all the shit. Well, wait, maybe not. Maybe it doesn't open up. But it's
I'm sure it doesn't
$485.
return. I'm sure it doesn't return to you.
Not yet. Not yet. Give him time.
I'm more worried about him how to catch it. Otherwise, you can get the.
If you got one, and droned it out.
How many kids are stabbed by themselves? As a return.
Yeah, we used to play with lawn darts. Remember lawn darts, guys?
I only heard about them. I never played with them.
Funny you mentioned that. My son's playing the South Park Stick of Truth, and one of the weapons that the main character has is lawn darts. And I was watching him play yesterday. It's like, use the lawn darts. Use the lawn darts. Because we had some crazy ass toys. I was also thinking of was it one of the Road Warrior movies with the razor boomerang?
Yep. And he loses the hand. He tries catching and loses his hand. That was the I was going to mention that one too. But you got me. Well, it's so funny because
have a boomerang. They're nothing to screw around with unless you know what you're doing.
Oh yeah. Well, but those are the things
if
that
James is still in the chat. Maybe he can give us a. He lives in the. Maybe he could give us some instructions on how to use a boomerang.
Well, here's the problem with James Ellis. Every time he tries sending the boomerang, via post, it keeps coming back. Anyway, sorry. So what else about this movie? I mean, we all talk about the things, but man, because there's just so much in it, and yet we still feel like there's so much missing. At least I do.
It needed, and I said this. I know I said this to you. This movie needed a sequel or a prequel. It really needed, well, not so much a sequel. It really needed a prequel. It needed the setup. Why were these two kingdoms fighting? Why? Where was this in the universe that makes her daughter so damn scary to this alien creature? Now, like I said, if they would have kept out all the sci-fi and made the beast a demon, a dragon, something more fancy, in my opinion, it would make more sense. So the question is if you could change the beast out for what it was to something else, let's say fantasy, what would you have changed it out to? And I'll start with Shadow.
I wouldn't have changed a damn thing, to be honest. I really like everything about it. I was, it was one of those movies that when, I was thinking about, got to watch it. I'm like, crap, I'm not going to dig it. It's going to be cheesy, etc. And then I'm like, okay. All right. Where the hell's Jackie, man? He should be watching this with me. I instantly was, identifying with the four main characters, the fighter, the cleric, the thief, and the magic user. I'm like, this has got it all. This would make for, a great, one of those 8 session RPGs that the modern, audience can barely tolerate. This would have got them through and then been able to do the 8 and then go, okay, cool. I want to make up a new character. And it would have been,
I'm going to say from my perspective, it's been very hard for me to get long running sessions just because of timing and everything else. It's not that I don't think players don't want to play long periods. It's just the group tends to fall apart a lot of times from that. Real life comes in, this person drops off. And anyway, that's what I found.
New jobs, people get married, people have kids, people go back to school's getting in the way.
People move for another job. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I'm not trying to. Everyone says, "Oh, it's only lasts for 6 sessions," but even when I was a younger kid, we still sometimes had problems. The difference was that we could play every day, and nowadays we play like every other week. But as a kid, I remember after school, all right, let's play 2 or 3 hours of D&D. And we did that 4 to 6 days a week. And we just went over and over and we could do that. But man, once you start having a kid and everything else, it's like, well, man, I'm just happy to get together for, every other weekend and we can do this. So that's why I don't want to knock people who say, well, it's only 6 game sessions. Because I find it's hard to sometimes get it. And it's not because they don't want to play it. I don't think that's fair.
Sometimes a story can only last 6 sessions,
But this was one. I mean, to be fair on this one, I see us doing this a year for a campaign. If you were going to do this in here, I think this could be easily a year.
All right. Well, back to
what about you, Shadow? Sorry.
Back at the question.
I think it would be considerably less than a year, to be honest. Unless you're going to start with things before the movie, just setting everything up, which would definitely fill it out. But as it stands, a year, I'd be like, yeah, I saw this movie. Can we,
Well, I was thinking every other weekend.
Right. There's always that too. It depends on what you mean by a year, because once a week is minimum for me. If I can't get once a week, I start getting looking at other things,
Sure.
And if you've ever watched some of us out there, guys, I'm not going to mention any names, Fritz. We really have the ability to really jump ship really quickly and just get super pumped and excited about something that we didn't even know about a week ago, and now all of a sudden it's our new freaking favorite thing. And I have Mark to thank for freaking amazing adventures. I'm kind of busy in a game right now, but I really can't wait to play this one. By the way, Mark, when I run it, I will be running the Nazi dinosaur cult adventure.
Nazi dinosaur quote adventure. All right. But I
Not that you're going to be playing Nazis; those are the bad guys. But
so if you could change the main villain out for something a little bit more fantasy based, not saying it's not fantasy based, I just don't. But the whole alien thing bothers me. What would it be?
I just look at it like Spelljammer, dude. If you look at it from a Spelljammer context, you're good to go. The going from world to world, I've done that too, and that actually makes for an incredibly diverse,
but
sort of above level campaign. It's like the bad guys aren't coming from across the sea; they're coming from up there, But I'm pretty gonzo, so it's like a no-brainer. But as for changing the bad guy out, I would have made him a little bit more seductive in a way. He was just a typical, of course the chick's going to go, ooh, you know what I mean? There's no way you two are hooking up. I mean, the thought that even crossed your brain that this beautiful young lady is going to be like, oh yeah, screw my planet. Yeah, let's make babies. Never going to happen, dude. Look in a freaking mirror, without some sort of, hardcore mind control device. Hell, the woman that he sent to go betray them, you know what I mean? She would have been more likely to just be like, screw that redhead. I'm right here, dude. Yeah, I know you're freaking ugly, but, I have no morals. Let's do it. You know what I mean? She was right there. It's like, dude, let her go. Let her go. Just make this new chick your queen. Ice the redhead. You got the world. It's who's going to argue with you, right? But it's always this, love comes in through the eyes, and he just went, oh my God. I guess they didn't have redheads where he came from or something. And, because the woman who tried to seduce the main character, she was not at all homely whatsoever. And many people, myself included, would have, been more attracted to a woman like that than, the one they had, as the princess. But, again, it's just a matter of taste. And he clearly, had some weird thing going on. But had he been, not just dripping with ugliness, he could have been a much scarier villain if you think about it. He could have just walked in, and schmooze the hell out of the place instead of, no, I'm just going to kill everybody and just be, that kind of brutal sort of, non-thinking evil. And instead, he was just kind of a cartoon character.
All right. What about you? What about you, Manal?
Oh, okay. I thought we were gonna go for Mark, but all right. Well, for me, this is why I think I was mentioning Legend, is you could see a much more seductive kind of villain from that. And while you're talking about worlds, and I agree with Shadow, I think the problem really comes down to is while we accept things nowadays, and this is a time era thing, the idea of multiple dimensions didn't really register with a lot of the movie going audience at the time. Nowadays, you could say it's multidimensional. It's not that it has to be space. You could say this is a multidimensional being who travels through the different dimensions. And I think that's just the awareness of the audience from that aspect. And okay, different worlds and different dimensions. No one has any problems with that nowadays. Every sci-fi geek's like, oh, what's the problem with that? But at the time, trying to get people in there that hadn't heard of that, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around until sometimes I think that there's a, when we do talk about modern audiences, I think there's, I want to put a little bit different, modern audience awareness and acceptance of things, which one of the things I heard was the problem with Star Trek when it came out. Star Trek, people like, no, this is going to be nothing until they reach the moon. As soon as they did the moon, everyone's like, oh my God! Shauna puts Star Trek exactly as, a lot of it was just, they did Wild West and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, but Star Trek really, that's how my parents met, oddly enough, was over Star Trek. My parents met because they were trying to sign a petition to keep Star Trek one more season. So that was part of that aspect. But if you're starting to get into these things, but I'm trying to think of good villains. I agree with Shadow. I think that again, the problem was that they made the Beast really ugly, which is fine. But you saw his seductive side where he could change shape. He says, "I can be any form you want." I also think that in certain ways, and this is where we're a little bit different. There was something special about her, how she had the flame and he wanted that power from her. He didn't really care about her. She was just another floozy off to the side. But I want the ability that when she gives me that flame, that gives me additional power. That's what I think came into part of that. And of course, how could you beat him? When he takes away the flame, what actually killed him? It was the flame. It wasn't the glaive. As much as we talk about the glaive, oh, I got this artifact. Like, screw that! I got the flame power. Look at me. No, I think that was where that was coming in for that. But I'm trying to think of it as, I wish that they had a more charming, less repulsive, or how do you want to put this in a certain way? A much more morally complex character. I hate saying Beauty and the Beast, but you have something in there where you have to make him sympathetic. But I agree with you. If I were going to replace it, I would just replace it with the devil that was in. Why can't I remember? Which one? Legend. Yes.
Legend. Tim Curry playing the devil or the Dark One.
Yes.
In Legends. Granted, he looked like he had the huge horns. He was bright red. He was very much the embodiment of what whatever. He was more using Shadow's argument. He was more seductive than I am a great big eyeball, and I could be whatever you want.
Well, I think that was.
Can you be gone? Can you be gone like far away?
Well, I think it would have been much more interesting instead of him just showing us the Beast, is showing him as humanoid and try to seduce her that way. And only whenever he decides to fight does he turn into the Beast. I think the problem was that they inverted it, and they had him as the Beast that can turn into a human, rather than showing him as a normal human where she would be somewhat attracted to him, and then turning him into the Beast when you see his actual real form.
But I kind of get going with the other way because of the alienness from another planet or dimension or whatever, that makes him more, alien and monstrous as opposed to, something we,
But
I mean, hell, just from a marketing standpoint, they couldn't even really define it as, like in an action figure or put the bad guy on a T-shirt or a poster. It
well,
was so nebulous that, you really didn't have anything but your imagination to really spark it. Maybe that's what they were trying to go for is an evil so nasty that we can't really show it.
well, my point was is that there's the image, there's the initial image in there, and then when they get into the battle, he would turn into the beast, and you get to see his true form. Was the whole point was you hold that back, and so then he's like he could be very charming in that aspect. That's what I'm trying to say. Is I think that they by making him just show off the beast at the very beginning, you're exactly right, Shadow. My God, why would she ever go with him? He's completely repulsive. It doesn't make any sense. Whereas if they had shown him as a humanoid, very majestic, or
Hell,
something
he should have known. I mean, for Christ's sake, he's conquered how many worlds and he still hasn't been able to find true love? Come on, dude.
He wasn't looking for true love. You know that. He's looking for the power. It's all about the power.
I got to be hopeful,
I know. He wasn't looking for Mrs. Right. He was looking for Mrs. Right now.
The only fire he wanted was what's in her hand. He didn't care about the rest of it.
All right. What about you, Mark? What do you think?
If I was to change out the main villain monster guy and try to keep it more straight line fantasy, I would say either like a devil or a dragon. But I get from this movie, I kind of got the feeling he was the monster in this. He just probably couldn't relate and wrap his mind around the concept of what true love or whatever was. And I kind of got the feeling he was kind of like a Cthulhu-esque type monster almost, and he just couldn't relate to.
Good point.
What this thing love was, and why that was so much, more the most powerful force as opposed to everything else. And he wanted it, but he couldn't wrap his mind around what it was.
That's an interesting concept. Redoing this movie, but in a 1920s Cthulhu setting.
When he gets to Earth, or he had gotten to Earth before he got to this particular planet, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the whatever. What was the name of his Fortress of Solitude? Have that land in, the North Pole or the Antarctic area, and go out from there.
Or be at Walt Disney World's castle. One of that works too.
I mean, I will say this much. I like the whole idea that every 24 hours the castle moves.
Yeah, that was cool.
That aspect I like.
Badass, actually. It's kind of, incredibly effective, shock and awe sort of tactic. It's like, good luck. It was kind of badass.
I love that idea for it. And, if we're going to do a campaign, man, characters can't just say, okay, we're going to attack the castle. Okay, where? Okay, where's it going to be at this time?
I don't know if you guys seen the cartoon on Netflix, anime on Netflix, Castlevania, that was based off the video game, where Dracula's castle had the way of teleporting wherever he wanted to. It had the mission, and that kind of made me think of the castle itself. The castle could have been here's the thought. The concept, the castle itself could have been its own character.
Yeah.
Done right.
Yeah, it did have a really organic feel to the inside of it. And it was actually pretty original set design. If you think about it, it had a lot of little, quirky twists and turns, and it would have definitely lent to the entire, sort of Lovecraftian mythos of the, the whole architectural style of it. It'd be interesting to see, some behind the scenes on, how much area that took up and things like that, and what it was really made out of. That'd be pretty interesting to have been a fly on those walls.
I'm going to say one thing that's a little different, but I really like the fact that they had enough side characters that could die off where it didn't feel like they were.
I was going to mention that, except for like Menlo or whatever. I'm like, you really worked hard on that name, didn't you? It's just oh, here goes another one. Here goes another one. It was very that was one of the things that was very Dungeons and Dragons like for me. It's like, okay, well you hired 10 henchmen at 2 gold piece a week, gonna run you about 30 gold back and forth on the expedition, and you're like pocket change. Even at second or third level, the prices for hiring those kind of guys was literally chump change.
Well, and out of how many survived, you had out of the number that went there, only what
2.
4 survived.
Oh,
Yeah, about that.
Well, let's see. You had Twitch. You had the magician.
I think
You
there were
had-
6 people. I think I counted 6 survivors, but from the scene, there could have been another one depending on the camera angle. But you're right; it was about 6.
well, let's see. Well, you had the princess. You had the prince or the king. You had the leader of the bandits. You had the boy, and then you had the magician. I don't know of any others that survived.
there was
might
one
have
other. There was
been
one
one-
other bandit, the young bandit guy.
Oh, okay. I thought he died, but okay, yeah. all right.
Yeah.
You're right. For some strange reason, I thought Liam Neeson's character made it through.
No, he died, and he's like, tell my wife,
Oh, but which one?
Yeah.
Tell my wife's. It should have been actually the wordage. For some strange reason, I thought Liam Neeson made it.
Nope. But he had a death scene.
Honestly, I would have changed the beast out to being a not a monster, non-alien, non-dragon, but actually a high-powered wizard, a human. That used illusions and had all the trappings that the beast had. But
You know
instead
what though? I was just thinking. Go ahead. Finish off, Connell, because it might take me a minute.
I think a human, where I don't want him to be like Don Juan. I get what you guys are saying, but he has the ability to do illusion spells. Do like a Phantom of the Opera type feel where the guy is just horribly mean. No one loves him. He has to use magic. He has loved the princess from afar, but she is about ready to get married to this guy, and it just breaks him. And he just
Snaps.
goes hell to bore to get her, and then he has his arm. He makes the soldiers he used out of being pieces of scrap metal or whatever, just magic. Get the sci-fi. There's nothing wrong with the sci-fi aspect of it. I am complaining about it, but I'm not doing it harshly. I'm just we could have done this. She didn't have to be the daughter did not have to be the princess of the universe. The daughter could have been, or the queen. It could have been the emperor of the world. It could have been very just change the universe out.
Yeah, that's like the only aspect that was science fiction in my,
That and the laser.
Well. I mean, that can be mentioned. The only part that was really is when you see it as a ship that's flying to the world at the very beginning.
Right.
But you're right. To me, this is why I said multiplanar. This would have worked really well. That not only does it teleport between worlds, it teleports, which is reading Elric, you get to see a lot of that. Teleport between worlds and teleport between places on the world. I don't disagree with you, Connell. The other thing I would have, not that I would go too trope is
make him an evil fairy king. Make him an evil fairy fucking king, and it fits everything.
Well, exactly, and that's what I was thinking of. What was the one from Hellboy 2?
Right.
Yes. What I'm saying is I don't mind something being monstrous, but I wanted the presentation initially as human or very human-like, and then once they get into the battle, then he changes into the monster. It's one of these things that you go, oh, okay, but at the part that you go, oh, it's no big deal. I can take him. He just has a lot of minions. You're like, oh crap! I'm fighting Demogorgon, not my 12th level wizard. I thought I was. Yeah.
This whole story could have actually also, I was thinking, run really well as if the bad guy was a dragon, just a good old fashioned high level dragon, and all his minions were dragonborn or whatever. You could run the whole thing But kobolds are a little dog man in my book, so that's why I said some sort of dragon
I
people.
understood them being little lizard creatures.
Yeah, well, in the old days, yeah, they were dogmen
Yeah.
in the old
But
days.
even little dogmen would have been cool.
Well, yeah.
But
At a
then-
certain point,
yeah.
we have. I have nothing wrong with that. Sorry, but I agree the dragon would have worked. But again, you're human form initially, and then the other part is to surprise the audience at the end, and you realize that he transforms into something else, and you're like, oh, no wonder he's known as because you can call someone the Beast. I mean, they do it in the Harkonnens, and
Yep.
you're still a human being. But then you go over like, well, what's the Beast? And you're like, oh, it's just that man. All we have to do is take a normal sword to kill him. You're like, a normal sword won't kill this guy. The glaive won't kill him. It hurts him. What else do we have? That's that kind of thing. So anyway, I agree with you.
All very almost biblical too, because well, anyways, sci-fi and fantasy is the hallmark of the time, right? Well,
Yeah,
it actually goes all the way back to pre-Dungeons and Dragons with the Dying Earth and various other novels that were inspirational to it.
Even
Right.
Conan. If you look at
Right.
Conan, you read the Conan stuff where it says, he brings up evolution. He brings up a lot of this stuff where it says, we had a high mighty thing before, and what's coming. And of course,
Atlantis. And Krull.
yep.
right. Yeah. The like up into like probably like early 80s is probably when we had the lines were, clear cut. Before the like sci-fi fantasy, the lines were blurred, you know what I mean? They all kind
Very
of
much so. Very much
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Well, I
To
think
the
part of
point
it was
to the point where I actually had players getting irritated or telling me in the equivalent of Session Zero before Session Zero was a thing. I don't want any techno in my game, man. I don't want any. I'm like, shut up. How are you gonna know? It's
Well,
gonna be all here, man.
well, the whole thing that gets me about is, Gygax I know did that, but boy, when I think it's the how do I want to call it? The
Blackmore?
Tolkien nerds, the Tolkien nerds versus the
yeah.
the
They
other
wanted
part. Don't get me wrong. I also don't like it when everyone I say I don't, and then yet I'll be like, oh, this sounds kind of cool. But I also am kind of the point of stop mixing your chocolate with my peanut butter. If I want peanut butter, I want peanut butter, and if I want chocolate, I want chocolate. Don't mix the two. I don't care how good it tastes. No, just well, to be fair, yeah. Anyway, but that's my joke for some of that is before it was all mixed, and now someone going, no, we got to separate the two. And I'm like, well, some of them do, some of them don't.
Yeah,
but
it's not a requirement. Hell, like I said, Blackmore. If you look at the original Blackmore supplement, that's science fiction and fantasy right then and there.
White Box D&D, the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide. They talk about modern weapons, and if anyone reads Manual of Planes, they talk about stuff like this too. But the first this is why I always make fun of Legion of Myth whenever he's doing things. I'm like, they had green Martians in the original White Box D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Which was
Well, because back then it was all brand new, virgin territory in the very beginnings of role playing games. There was no.
It was considered a universal system.
Whatever struck the writer's fancy was going in. Arno is a great example. 1978, David A. Hargrave was doing even more, mixing of the genres.
Well, Dying Earth is exactly it, and you can see where that comes from the Gygax stuff. And when it talks about that, the best example I think of Dying Earth, oddly enough, is actually Numenera for modern gaming. That's just because it's everything. But
or even prior to all of that, you could go just into the world of comic books.
Yeah.
Marvel and DC both had an Earth where you had freaking aliens and sorcerers and gods and mutants and superpowered individuals all hanging out on the same planet or galaxy or whatever as far back as what 1950s, 1940s.
I don't know. Yeah, the 1960s. I think Marvel did more of the superhero stuff. But I just. But some of it comes down to, and this is what I got mad about Warlord when I was watching the later stuff, is I wanted it to be its own unique universe. And when you start mixing everything in together, and sometimes you lose the initial appeal for it. But
Yep.
but if you look at the Warlord stuff right up until they went to the Atlantis thing, they were mixing science fantasy with all this, and no one had. I think here's the other part: no one had any problems until I guess it was the 1970s, because we're all looking at this. But Atlantis was supposed to have all of these wonderful things, and that's the way we kind of looked at the world. Is you have Stone Age with Atlantis, and we lost the civilization, and man, I couldn't believe how do I want to say the listening around calls from the snorts of derision whenever they start talking about Atlantis and how they hate the idea of it so much. That was but the I said,
Who hates it? Who hates it?
the phrase was snorts of derision talking about Atlantis. They even had geologists. They were investigating the Azure Islands. I didn't want to go too far down this thing. Watch his podcast for some of this, but they were talking about going down there, and they're finding out that some of the stuff, it's just like the Black Sea. There were civilizations there before it filled up full of water. With anyway, showing that it was above water more recently than we think it was. That whatever happened during the Pleistocene era really altered a lot of the world when it went to the Holocene. Anyway, that's enough for that. Sorry, I don't want to derail the whole thing. As Mark's smiling,
So, if you could, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. Is there any scenes of this movie you wish that they would dragged on just a few minutes longer? And is there any scenes of this movie that you wish they would have shortened by a few minutes, or just outrightly just change outright? And Mark, I'll start with you because you're the biggest talker here.
Yeah. I can't think too much. Maybe a hair bit more. If I could have got a hair bit more backstory in the beginning, or I don't know, maybe that initial battle in the beginning, maybe a hair bit longer. But otherwise, to fit it all in the one movie, I think the pacing was where it needed to be, in the scenes and the length and the different arcs where the time was appropriate.
All right. Over now.
all right. The weird scene where they fall through the door and there's the trap and it has the spikes coming in.
Yeah.
We could have done without that. I mean, honestly, that was just one of those. That felt like, hey, we just threw a trap into a D&D dungeon with no real purpose. Like, why would you have some of these things? It reminds me of Galaxy Quest. With like, why would you put this in the ship? Anyway, so there's that aspect. And then the part that I would have liked to have seen more was for the glaive, because it really didn't seem that epic for him getting the glaive. Like, why didn't anyone just climb up there and grab the glaive? That's where I think
you had to have the willpower and the conviction to be able to reach into the boiling water or whatever that was and know that you're not going to get hurt, and that's the only way you could do it. But
but it felt like one of those that we're adding story to it that hadn't been there. I felt that it would have been, I think, some more challenges in there.
Because he only had really like the rocks falling towards him. But I think that was, and the obstacle of actually climbing to get to it. But I think, maybe you could have fought another monster or something along the way,
or be tested mentally. You go through the 3 tests. You have to be
right.
You have to have one of conviction and courage. So that's one. Then you had to have one of intelligence, and then you'd have to have some.
Right. Yeah. Right. I see that. Yeah.
To me, you should have had a few more tests.
Well, he had at least 2: the strength, the physicalness by climbing, the conviction or whatever, putting his hand in, and then something else was definitely missing, or at least like you said, some sort of test of using the damn thing. I don't know, target practice, something. That whole, I guess, it had some sort of like battery or limited number of charges.
Yeah, he said that's the guy who said you gotta. Because he was going to throw it right at one point, and he said, you can't just use that willy-nilly. You have to use it when the time's right. But that was probably a plot armor thing because they didn't know how to do the special effects for it.
Yep.
But I just felt that, like, why didn't anyone go up there? I would have much preferred if he'd gone through and you'd seen lots of dead bodies and, you know, stuff like that, where for all the people that had failed to go through there.
You know what, though? It also kind of seemed like nobody knew about the damn thing. You know what I mean?
And maybe they thought it was a holy relic that was lost in time, and that guy was the only one that really knew. Because he had we didn't know a lot about the healer guy that came down from the mountain. He had some type of interesting backstory, and behind we didn't get the full thing fleshed out for him. So yeah,
well,
he's probably the most fleshed out character of them all. To be honest, he had the most going on. You know,
well,
kind of like the Gandalf, I guess.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Well, it's like Shadow talking about Traveler, where you can get the experienced character with the younger characters in there. But that's where the point of where I said it just felt that there should have been more there, more than just rocks falling down.
Right.
Add a scene to that, 5 minutes or something.
One more test or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
But that's just my feeling for it. But I didn't like the spikes coming in. I would just remove that. That just felt so.
Well, not only that, but I mean, the spikes look like they're made out of wood. I would have just snapped them. Grab a point and snap it. Nobody even tried. They just like, oh, I guess we're gonna die. Yeah, this sucks. Can't possibly get out of this. It was pretty weak.
Hey. There's a certain point of disbelief we can remove, but that was just one I felt like it didn't add too much to it. I thought that was just it was weird that they touched the thing, they fell through, and they're like, oh no, don't go there. That was just too, anyway.
You know what I would have liked to have seen, though? Would have been a little bit more info on the bad guys' minions. Some sort of scene of just squishing those tentacle dudes into the suits or something. That would have been kind of fun. But,
we all have kids. Granted, I think Jack and Omen's kids are probably the youngest of this motley crew. But does anybody remember the old Power Ranger movie, Power Ranger TV show?
Okay, I remember the 1970s version with like Ultraman and see, when I saw the Power Rangers, I remember seeing the 1970s stuff, which was not it's not what they put the American actors, where it would always be this weird thing, and they would like.
I've got it all on DVD. I've got it all on DVD. We loved it. That creature from the Black Lagoon, where he just wiggles and falls off the cliff. Classic schlock.
So what my thought processing was on this is going with that was you see him, the monster, the beast, go to his quartermaster, and he takes these pieces of whatever Daleks from Doctor Who, and he puts them in the machine, and you just see not a factory line, but you see you see them, the whole Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. where the Iron Man suit gets put onto him. Just one. You don't have to do it. Yeah, you don't have to do it thousands of times. You just had to do it once, and it would have added a little bit more oomph to the bad guys. A little bit more than these are paper cutout villains I made.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't disagree with you. It would have been kind of cool to see how he was making them. Everyone wants to make the monster look monstrous, but let's be honest, it's usually the actions that really make the monster monstrous. It's not necessarily but I mean, there's a certain point of like, well, how much are we adding in there? Does it add anything
to the story and stuff? Yeah.
I'm so used to the classic, like at some point we're gonna have to watch Dragon Slayer. I'm not
opposed of adding that to our I don't know when, but adding that to our list of theme.
But let's wait a little while. Bruce just did it like a month ago, so.
Oh yeah, no, all these are. I mean, I know the next couple months are basically planned out for us. I'm just saying, it's never too early to come up with like, hey, in December, let's do a Dragon month, or because how many fucking Dragon movies are out there?
Rain of Fire,
not enough.
Dragon Slayer,
Dragon Heart, Pete Pete and his dragon.
No.
I'm
no.
just
That
saying,
one
there's a
doesn't
lot of
count.
dragon movies. There's a lot of dragon movies already out there.
Does
But
the Sorcerer count or whatever that is?
what would I change? I would like them to
Wait a
add
minute, but did Shadow give his full version?
No, I don't know. Shadow, did you?
Yeah, no,
My
I
full
don't think he
version of
did.
what?
A scene he wanted to put in
Oh,
something
you
to
guys
add.
did
And
them all,
remove.
to be honest. Yeah, there's really all you could do would really be to shorten the movie because there was so much in it. Other than prehistory stuff or more time with the bad guy, like we discussed. Otherwise, it was a full 2 hours and a couple of minutes, and I really can't think of a whole lot that's
Yeah,
missing.
right.
I figured that might be your answer, to be honest. No offense, but I figured that might be your answer. I already got 20. We'll do one more question. Well, now, that would make more sense. The bad guy being the prince's younger brother turned on him. That would have been interesting. Sorry, random thought on there.
Well, see, this is the great thing about if you read more books, you come up with more great ideas that are very literary tropes.
Right. Would you think if they did a reboot of this movie, not by Disney, not by all the companies that some of us here have hate for, but let's say some new person on the block decides to do a movie, would you rather this be, I know Omen out, and he said it multiple times, would you rather see this be as a mini series or like a trinity of 3 different movies if they did a reboot? Because
Wait, sorry, what?
if they were to redo this movie, would you rather it be a mini series, or like say not a mini series, a series only lasts like 4 or 5 seasons, or a trinity movie, like three movies, getting the thing, finding the seeker, killing the bad guy? Which of the 2 would you guys prefer?
4-part miniseries on like Sci-Fi Channel would be all you need.
For me, well, I know what you're saying for me, but for me, I can see easily putting this into a 10 or 12 hour miniseries, which I mean, theoretically you could do with 3 movies, but man, I don't want to put this as, and I wish I'd seen it. I heard all these good things about, speaking of Dark Crystal, the series. People said that
it was great. It was absolutely great for what it was.
It's very, and then they just canceled it. I'm like, oh, come on. And it was getting critical acclaim. The original people loved it. It's not like the modern day where we're trying to kill whatever, came before. And I agree with Bo, that was the big dangers, is that people, apparently what they did with Willow and a few of these others, they want to kill the old characters to bring new characters instead of having the old characters mentor the new characters up and letting letting us love to see how they have become. Instead, they want to tear down the old ones and somehow, and yet this movie, the healer is the guide who gives up his life. He's a noble person to do the right thing. And I think that it would work really well from that aspect of, I use Lost. I don't know if you guys all saw Lost.
Oh, I saw Lost. Once it was like on screen.
Well, I mean, it was, what was it? Didn't they call it like Once Upon a Time or something, which was the fairy tale version? Where you get to see the characters and then they would flash back. And you get,
when they were back in the story. Yeah.
But I mean, by doing that, you can flesh out all these characters back and forth and tell a really good story. Now, do I think it would be? Do I think that you could do multiple seasons? Probably. Well, nowadays you probably could because they're all 10 episodes. But I think it would only be like a 1 season thing that you could do with it. But man, you could do so much with this. You could let it evolve, but that's the way I feel about it. This would be a great mini series or a 2-season, 20 episode. If you, when I say flesh out, you have to really. I don't want it fleshed out for the sake of being fleshed out, but I you know what I mean. It's where they drag it out.
Right.
But you could do the characters. You could do Ynir as when he was young and flashback, and then show him with the Emerald Seer, and then with the widow in the web. You know, you could go back and you could go back and forth, and you could see his whole arc, and then you could see the. I feel so bad. You could see the princess's father and the prince's father. You could see that their history for that, and then you could go back and look at the beast, and you could see what he was doing, and you could bring all these things. Oh, especially if you want to do some of the beast and the Cyclops. Remember how he said that he I'll promise you this, and that was really one of the weird things when they saw it.
Yeah,
you know, when they talk about the multi-dimensional, multi-world. Well, how the hell did Cyclops get there? It makes a lot more sense if it's multi-dimensional, where they could go across dimensions, and the Cyclops felt cheated, and that's why they fought against the Beast the entire time. You told us we could see the future, but only our deaths. There's a lot that you could add to flesh out in the world to make it like a fully three-dimensional world. And then, of course, you do a role-playing game with it. You do toys with it. You do a video game with it. If the whole point is no one's going to make something unless it makes money. We talk about the things we love, but
I was just thinking a role-playing game though. It's a nice tie-in.
You know how?
Oh, and real quick, Justin, we have not done Lady Hawk, but that's not going to be for at least 2 more months. Maybe in May we can go back to fantasy.
Did somebody out there in the YouTube world already do Lady Hawk that I'm not aware of? I'm sure somebody's had to by now.
No. Well, somebody, but none of us. But next month, or this month, I should say, is historicals, and
April is westerns, right?
April is westerns, because that is Shadow's birthday, and that's my birthday gift to Shadow. Outside of, I do have something else planned.
Oh crap!
But yeah, we're going to do westerns. I know we started off kind of talking about movies that we want to turn into RPG games. This movie right here would make a great campaign if somebody took. It would be a what's the term? A love, act of love or whatever to turn
Labor of love.
To do it with this one, which is kind
of. I nominate Omen.
This is one like Shaz brought up. This is one that would be really easy to do with OSE.
I can't imagine. I mean, to be fair, I only know 3 systems well enough to actually DM out of, and I'm trying to fix that. But I can see doing this in Pathfinder.
I can do it in any system.
I can't imagine.
Okay, do it, dude. Shut up.
Okay.
Put up or shut up.
Well, here's the problem I have with Pathfinder. Pathfinder has so many integral systems that are there. Is to start trying to change things, breaks it a lot of times, or it causes a lot of. There are a lot of issues that can occur with Pathfinder, but OSE, very few. I mean, I can play with DCC, which is they're basically almost the same. You can literally take a module from one and use it in the other. That's how much they're compatible.
I mean,
but I could see myself doing this, and this sounds kind of odd. I could see myself doing this in an Exalted campaign.
Nah, it's too. The players would be too over the top, I think. You'd have to hit that dial all the way up to like 11 or 12.
Well, the reason I mentioned I could do this in a because I just came out with the Exalted Essence, which Chimerian and I were talking about, and he's like super excited. I could see this being dragon blooded and having players do it that way. Not what you guys are solars, which are like the highest end, or lunars, but doing a dragon blood or a god blooded campaign with it very easily in a very similar world, because that's kind of gonzo as well. But for systems, I probably this would be a perfect OSE game, because you got the healer, you've got a magic user. They don't have a lot of spells. They've got you've got the fighters there. You got your thieves. You got your magical monsters in there. You don't have.
I could run this out of Food Hill. You know, I mean, it's just if you want to put the work into it, it's not that hard. And let's face it, almost every one of us back in the day did something similar, when we only had, one or two systems that we knew about or in our collection. It's like, oh crap, I want to do this or I want to do that. We've all probably done something very similar.
This is very much a Save the Princess type RPG.
Yep.
Yeah, which is awesome. I love Save the Princess RPGs.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that's what this is. This is very much save, and I don't know. I think I don't know. I'll have to tinker around with this. As of right now, I'm tinkering around for a module that I've joked around, but I'm actually putting pen to paper. Escape from Alcatraz Island, OWL Catraz Island. That will be running later on this year when it's back to my turn on Table Breakers. This would be 100%. Haven't made it. Well, we'll get into it later on Table Breakers, and we'll talk about it here.
Yeah, we gotta get to the next movie, the next episode.
Yeah. All right. So
the little guy's not here. He asked me to put in his submission because I think it's his turn next, right?
It's mine, then it's his.
Oh, okay.
Right. What's his, anyways?
For Greater Glory.
What was that from? I don't even remember that film.
It's a historical, sort of Western Mexican kind of revolution, Civil War kind of movie. He said it's not technically the Civil War because they've had so many, but that's his pick.
Okay.
I've never heard of it. I looked it up. I'm like, I don't recognize anybody in it, but he's thrown worse at us. I'm certain this one actually looked like better than at least two of his previous picks. So
okay,
not a dollar store classic.
No. Well,
no.
That's I haven't seen this movie, but it looks like it has a halfway decent cast from what I'm looking at. In the late 1920s, Mexico, retired general, a Spanish name that I can't pronounce. I'll leave that to Jack. Yeah, this one looks doable. No, next week we're doing mine, so we'll do this 2 weeks out.
Okay.
Mine will be Robin Hood, but not the Kevin Costner Robin Hood.
The BBC one.
It's a BBC-ish. It feels more. You shake your head, Shadow, but as long you'll enjoy it.
Shadow's an Errol Flynn guy all the way through and through. I know it.
I know. Right? I know. Hey, I'm a big. Would you rather the Disney one with the animals?
Yeah, kind of. No, only because that particular cartoon was the very first thing I ever saw in the theater.
I'm not opposed, but we're doing historically, not historic. I think, anyways. And plus, I'll have that damn song that the rooster whistles through my head for like next month if we did that one.
Well, and mine, whenever my turn comes up, is I'm going for Ben-Hur. So
I thought we were doing April.
10 Commandments.
Oh, right, 10 Commandments. I thought we were. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, no, because it's right around that Easter time frame.
Right. So
and historical.
Why don't everybody just throw out their picks so it gives the chat a little bit of an idea what they're in for. I'm doing Robin Hood. I'll get more into it. When we get to it, I'll
you'll have to send me a link or something so I make sure and not to watch the wrong one.
Same time. Yeah, it's in the 90s, but it doesn't have Kevin Costner. I'll make sure everybody gets it. Mine will be Robin Hood. Gentleman Jack's will be for Greater Glory. Omenau is doing Ben-Hur. What about you, Mark? Do you have one picked up?
I was thinking El Cid. I haven't seen it in a lot of years, but I was thinking that one.
Okay, if you would write that down in our Discord page, so I know how to find it, that'd be great. In Shadow, what would you pick?
10 Commandments.
Oh, you guys are making my soul hurt.
Why? Why is it making it so hard? These are great films. I mean,
I always feel guilty. I can't imagine why. It's like I go to church and I come out a little bit tanner every time. I don't know why.
Well, just don't be like Pharaoh and you'll be okay.
So, with the last 6 minutes of
okay, wait, which book is that, Shadow?
The old
This is the Illustrated Junior Library, and then this one is The Adventures of the Reader's Digest. Both are older than I am, which is saying a lot. I've had this book since as far back as I can remember. But these both actually tell the same end of Robin Hood that alone is worth reading for, because no one ever has the balls to say how it really ended. And if you know, you know. And it actually has a warning here in this 1952 version. You might not want to read the end because you will be crying for the rest of the afternoon after reading it.
All right. Well, with all that being said, and 5 minutes still left in the clock, I just want to thank the chat for stuck around. James L, Justin, Kai. Well, I'm sorry, Saint Kai of the Rants.
I didn't see Kai in here. Oh, there he is.
Oh, Kai joined us? Oh, man, that's cool.
Well, momentarily. I don't know if he's still
wait. You know, the bigger question for Chimerian is,
don't forget Clady and Bo.
I was about ready
Lady.
to get to them. So, with that all being said, I will, because, you know, Shadow always has a litany of things that he's planning on doing this coming week. I will start with Mark. Mark, what do you have planned for this upcoming week?
Probably start researching and plan. I just actually got I had some videos uploading while we were doing this, so hopefully I'm gonna get those posted tonight, then start on to my next series of videos here, hopefully this week.
So when am I gonna be on your show?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to dive into live streaming, and I'm gonna each kind of figure out. I know Shadow's my Burrows guy, so when I get to something that's Burrows-esque, I'm gonna have him help me out, and then we get something urban fantasy, I'm gonna have you help me out, Connell, and then I'm kind of thinking when I get to my noir stuff, Omen's gonna help me with. We're gonna figure something out. We'll do that way, and then Jack, I don't know, dollar store basement movie bin movies or historical, political, whatever,
why are these our guilty pleasures that can only be found at the last place you look?
Hey, I'm okay with some guilty pleasures as long as we admit they're guilty pleasures. You know?
Yeah. I have a guilty pleasure.
And Krull is a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, it's a cult. It falls in that cult class. It was a flop, and it's it has a lot of schlockiness and falls into cult.
I know. I
movie
find
status,
that amazing though that it did so poorly from the way. I mean, I rank it. As having been like leaps and bounds better than Beastmaster, and I love Beastmaster. I mean, there was a summer or a year there on HBO. It was the only thing on HBO. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Literally, I would watch it at my place, go over to my buddy's house, which was like a half hour away, in time to catch it again. And this was like all summer long. We
might actually have to do a guilty pleasure.
Hawk the
That would be
Slayer.
fun. Not for a while, but like sometime around Christmas or whenever. When it gets cold outside and we're stuck inside. Oh my God, this movie.
November.
November's
a great time to do stuff like that because
So in November, let's go ahead and put on the books for November. We'll do guilty pleasures.
No. If we're gonna do guilty pleasures, and I don't know, because I like to have Jack have time to watch stuff for guilty pleasure, which apparently he hasn't. Man, a July or an August time frame for guilty pleasures works out well because it's the summer. Everyone's relaxed. You don't have a lot of that stuff.
We'll definitely have to put it on there. I was also thinking maybe of a sport movie, because I love the Rocky movies. Those are it's not my guilty pleasure because I'll admit it to anybody, but as a former boxer, I love the Rocky Creed movies.
Dodgeball.
Yeah.
Because it's a comedy.
All right, Shadow, what do you got going on?
Until the little guy's voice comes back online, it's just going to be me doing a couple of things. Hopefully by Tuesday we'll do our we should have done it last week, but I think we did something else. Oh yeah, because we got our Dungeons and Lasers. We would have done our March announcement month, but all month long we're going to be doing giant stompy robots all month long. Mechs, robots, robo-jocks, you name it. BattleTech, Cav, Gundams, anything that's a big giant freaking robot. That's what we're doing all month long. Some crafts, some game reviews, some Gundam model building, and it's right there in the title. Shadow and Sun, me and the boy doing stuff. And if he can't make it, then it'll just be me doing some stuff. And I do have, I'll be probably bringing back the either Why We Play the Game or some other series during the early weekday days. I'm also doing a new series that it's called One on One. And last week I did it with Mr. Max because I want to highlight the new young or old up and comer personalities on YouTube, even people who don't have a channel like Omen. You're slated to be one of them real soon because everybody knows you, but they don't know the stuff that I would ask. All kinds of dirty secret
on that list of
personal
up and
questions.
comers? Am I on that list?
Yeah.
Oh dear
Yeah,
God!
but I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to avoid the table breakers guys because we're already doing 2 shows a week. And there's some people out there. This week is going to be Iron Man. If you guys don't know Iron Man from the chats, the guy
I've seen the name. Yeah, I know him from seeing him.
He is a mountain of knowledge and great ideas. He and I had a 2-hour discussion yesterday because he didn't think we could fill a full hour, of a discussion on a particular topic. And 2 hours later, it's like, damn, you proved me wrong. It's real easy to get into a conversation, and he, really could have a channel. If you look at Mr. Max, he's already busting past 200 subs in a matter of weeks. I'm about to hit 600, and it's taken me and the boy almost 3 years to get there. I just picked up 5 subs over the weekend, and I don't know where they came from, but I'm incredibly grateful. And guys like Mark and Bo, you guys all got to be on the show. It'll be Friday mornings right after the Hungar show, and if for some reason we need to like for you, Mark, or something, do it at a later time, we will. Just hopefully it'll be on a Friday before Max's stream, because that just sucks everybody over there for the most part. Plus we've got the game on Friday night, so
yeah, we'll figure it out.
I'll get with you guys. Maybe even Mark, when we do it, maybe we can have the 4 of us do it. You, me, and our little ones do something. Just to hang out and get to know one another type of thing. Because we got to get the little guys into it. And by little guys I mean anything from as soon as they can read to 17, 18 years old. The hobby needs well mentored youngsters to be willing to carry on the banner. And I don't care what system or anything like that. Just the whole spirit of the hobby is one of the greatest things to have blessed my life. And seeing how many people it transformed over the years from the 98-pound weakling to the grown-ass men and women that we are today. It's really been an incredible positive influence, and anything I could do to keep that going, I'm going to do it.
All right. Well, Kai, so you don't feel left out, I'll have to interview you, and we'll have to see what your thoughts on things.
Kai's on the list, but you and Kai and Jade and Bruce and Baron, it just seems a little self-aggrandizing to just pick on those guys right off the bat. It would kind of defeat the purpose, even though a lot of us, most of us, are pretty low on the totem pole when it comes to famous people out there. But there's some people out there that really deserve a a moment in the spotlight more than just 15 minutes of fame.
All right, guys. I want to thank everybody joining us tonight. I want to Kai, Justin, Bo, James L, Flighty, Grandma for the few minutes she was in here.
Oh, she was here too. Oh,
yeah,
guys,
was.
we gotta
was.
make her famous, man. We gotta make
Yeah,
her
no
famous.
joke. I will probably end up doing the show probably tomorrow after my game. See if I can, rope a few people in there. Omanau, of course. I'd love to have you, Shadow, Mark. You guys are always welcome when I'm just doing a chat show. We not necessarily have to be talking about anything.
No particular topic.
Yeah, it's just
Monday
a
is
rambling.
literally like my only day off, and
For what?
I do a show with Hungar in the morning. Monday's
that's
like
fine.
the only day I'm not like swamped, but I'll see what I can do. I've missed a lot of your shows, and I feel bad about it, but you always pick a time that's right after a show, and
Monday, well, I'm always still slightly juiced from the show, or with Monday, I'll go. I will be after 10 because my game is until 10, and I'm like all juiced up still from being excited about the game, where I would just want to ramble about whatever. And I enjoy
Bruce's
them.
show is on. I don't like stepping on that either
Well, mine's after
because I'm
Bruce's.
usually there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
but
usually
anyway, we'll make it work.
there to zap the bad guys.
Bruce gets enough attention.
No, I like zapping the bots when I'm there. Even if I've never seen the movie, which is 90% of the time, I'll still be there paying attention. So that if they come in, I can, fire at will.
Everybody out there, you have a lovely Sunday. I hope everybody has a good following week. For me, until Easter, it is the time of Lent. So I am miserable with the things I gave up this year for Lent. I think next year I might give up being Catholic.
That's right. You can be Orthodox.
Right. I'll stop
saying.
being Catholic and become Orthodox Catholic. The Elite Gamer, aka DM James. DM James will freaking love that. With that being said, have a good week. Be kind to each other. If you can't be kind, don't be around other people. That's why I live by myself. Everybody out there, you all have a good night.
All right. Good night.
God bless.
Bye-bye.